So as we were hopping on here today, super excited about this conversation we're going to have, Greg. Uh, there was a friend of mine from back in high school that I saw. It was a Facebook post, and he made reference to a car. So let me rewind it just maybe just a little bit. Uh, I'm a big car fan. I love classic cars. Muscle cars is really my thing. So I watch Mecum. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Mecum, MECUM.com. They're an auctioneer. They auction cars, classic cars. Another one would be Barrett Jackson. They actually just finished up Barrett Jackson. I was just watching the auction last night on TV. It's just a pastime of mine. I love it. And so what happens, obviously, is they're promoting and selling cars across the block is what it's called. And one of the cars that went across the block sold for over $6 million. Yeah, $6 million. And when that happened, or after that happened, a friend of mine from high school made a post, and I just want to read that post, and that's going to kind of begin the conversation we're going to have here today about mindset, how wealth mindset, because I almost kind of want to answer his post here. Let me read what it said. It said, "I would like to know what kind of money you have to buy a car over $6 million. And then he said, "So many questions running around in my mind." And so I read that. And as I mentioned, I know this gentleman. I've known him since we were 7th, 8th grade, maybe even 6th grade. Anyway, so a long time ago, early teenagers, ran around together, got our licenses about the same time. So we were just always out running around doing stuff. So cars has kind of just been our thing. So to hear and watch him make that post, it was just like, wow, because I used to be the exact same way. And I just want to have a discussion today about the mindset part of that comment that he made and how just flipping a few things can really change your perspective on life, perspective of where you're going. So yeah, I want to talk about, building businesses and the wealth mindset versus lack mindset, and just kind of see where the conversation goes. Any thoughts so far, Greg? And I shared the post with you. We had a little bit of a dialogue about it. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point to bring up. And I think the way that your friend asked the question, it could be taken as he's asking the right question,
Right.
or it could be taken as very sarcastically, who has the money to buy these cars? What are they? You know what I
True.
mean? Like, and I think
Yeah,
that's the way
true.
most people, I took it that way. But I think he's asking the right question if it's with sincerity. But I don't think it really comes across that way on a Facebook post. And we can kind of get into the way the questions was asked and everything. But that was my initial take of, well, it could go either way, but I think a lot of people would take it as sarcastic. He's kind of stuck in that middle class mindset, that kind of thing.
Well, when he, at the very end of the post where he says so many thoughts running around in his mind, that's kind of what got me, meaning he's, like you said, it's almost beginning to ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's just he's not seeing the possibilities or even the potential for that because of an upbringing or, like I said, we went to the same school. We were taught by the same teachers. I knew his mom and family. He knew my mom and my family, or my parents, right? It's not just mom, it's parents. And yes, when we are taught not to understand businesses and how to add value in the marketplace. So let me back it up a little bit more as well, and how I would even answer or begin to answer if someone came to me and said, "How in the world can somebody afford a $6 million car?" I don't care if it's a $2 million car, a $10 gazillion car, or I don't care if it's a $20,000 car. Or it doesn't matter. The dollar amount is almost like more for impact than anything, right? So $6 million that's a significant amount, but it could be any amount, and it's the mindset is what's the most important part. And so what I've discovered through my personal development journey and my financial education piece, that it's once again, it's a mindset shift of learning and thinking that the money in the car it's a result. It's you get those things or you have those things because of the work that you've done up until that point, right? The businesses that you've built, the relationships that you've built. It's starting there. When I was growing up, and even into my adulthood, thinking that, or a mistake that I was making was thinking that I had customers, meaning I was in a retail grocery chain, and I had customers, and thinking that I would make the mistake of saying, okay, those were my customers, when in reality, it was the business owner's customers. And that gentleman was flying around in private jets, and he had the houses and he had the stuff, and he was probably able to buy a $6 million car. That's the difference. Is I think that when you get in the mindset that you're going to be an employee, which they're like, so once again, it's not right or wrong. It's just the decision. If that's what you want to do, which is work for somebody else and be an employee for a corporation or a small company, big company, it doesn't matter. But ultimately, even though you might have customers within that business is serving the owners of that company because they have leverage, right? They're serving the community. There's different forms of leverage within that business. We've talked about leverage on the podcast in the past. So let me stop there and see if that doesn't help spark up a little bit more some thoughts in your own mind, Greg, as far as the direction I wanted to take this discussion for sure.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you mentioned there was, picking the right path that works for you. Because like you said, not everybody wants to be a business owner. Not everybody maybe has the capabilities right now to be a business owner. It doesn't mean you can't learn how to be, a successful business owner. But it depends on a lot of factors. Risk is obviously one big factor. I know there's a lot of people that they say there's no way I want to own a business because it's a little bit too risky for them based on maybe their upbringing or where they are in their life, their age, their savings. There's a lot of things that kind of play into risk. So yeah, I think making that choice and really having that decision and choosing for yourself, is this going to be a path that I enjoy, that I'm going to be successful in? Or is it going to be, or is another path, maybe better for me? And like you said, there's no right or wrong, but once you make that decision, then, go down that path 100%.
So it is a choice. And that's where I just want to make sure folks that if you're listening to us today and you have those, when you see things like that, you have the same kind of thoughts. I just want to make sure you understand that it's a choice. It's a different mindset. It's taking the risk. Like you said, Greg, it's a risk, but the potential for gain is greater, but it's not guaranteed. There's nothing guaranteed. So it just, once again, it's a mindset shift. If you're looking for safety and security, which I would argue that having a job isn't necessarily safe and secure, but it might feel like it is, right? If you're getting a job or a paycheck every week or every 2 weeks or whatever your pay schedule is, it might feel safe and secure. And my argument, based on my past story, is that's not necessarily true because I've literally I've had the rug pulled out right out from underneath me on a safe and secure job that I thought was going to be around forever and ever. That's not the discussion for today. But the point is that yes, there are different ways of thinking. There's different ways of being. You're trying to add value in the marketplace. So let me maybe make that point as well. And I'm making a ton of assumptions on the person that purchased this car for over $6 million. So this is almost like a general statement. But here's what I've learned is that folks that have the ability, have the capital, or have the investment awareness to make that type of a purchase, they've served millions and millions of people, probably worldwide. They have a business that helps solve a problem so massive that because of that problem solving, they've built this massive business that then spits off enough capital or cash or cash flow to then allows them to go out and invest in these types of assets. Now, whether on the podcast we talk about assets, put money in your pocket. This isn't that type of an asset. This is almost like a trophy asset, right? You're gonna be looking at this all the time. Stacy my wife made the comment the other day. How are you gonna even drive that? I'm like, you're not driving that. It's sitting in the corner of a barn or wherever, a museum. It could be a museum piece, right? It's just gonna sit there and it's gonna look pretty. It's art. But it's once again, it's a mindset. But I just want to make sure that like I said, I'm putting some assumptions in there. But this person that made this purchase probably has a business of so much, it's so large and it serves so many people and it solves a big enough problem. That's where he has the ability. And I'm also making an assumption that it's a he. It could be a she. So don't let me, I don't want anybody to say, you're just talking about the guys. Well, no, it can be anybody. But the point is that you're adding a lot of value in the marketplace. And when you add that value in the marketplace, and then you will get rewarded in terms of sales, which in turn you'll get more dollars. If you're coming from the U.S., obviously whatever currency you're listening to us in, which then is going to allow you then to support your lifestyle. And part of that lifestyle, at least for this individual, was collecting $6 million GT40s. So if anybody knows what a GT40 is, Craig, you probably don't know what a GT40 is. That was a subject for another day, maybe two. But anyways, that's what this car was. Any more thoughts on that? Yeah, hopefully I was clear on kind of my thought process there. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned, and I think you mentioned this offline before we started, the Robert Kiyosaki, the business assets lifestyle. That's exactly what you just described, basically.
Yes.
You create a business, then you buy the assets. Like you said, the car is not really necessarily an asset. Could be if it's an art piece, could not be, depending.
It's a store of value. So that's kind of how I look at it. Art, it could be precious metals. It can be rings like diamonds. It can be things like that. It's a store of value. You can quickly is a relative term, but you can quickly turn that thing, that piece, that art piece, that ring, that precious metal, whatever, back into the currency of choice, meaning there's always a demand for that in the marketplace. So you're just storing, instead of having your wealth stored in dollars in a bank account, they have it stored in art or automobiles or real estate, or, I mean, it can be many, many, many different things. But yeah, that's the difference. And so hopefully, sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off with your thoughts. So hopefully, yeah, please continue.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, like you said, the Robert Kiyosaki, the business assets lifestyle. So yeah, the business is, like you said, somebody went out there, he or she created a business, created a lot of value, and people pay for value. And that's how businesses operate, obviously. And then you go out and you buy assets, whether they're, appreciating or depreciating. That's a whole nother, topic right there. And then that creates a lifestyle. And that is, exactly from that Facebook post, that's kind of the formula that, this person derived from, right? Or used. And then, when the person asking, how can they afford that $6 million car? That's it. Business, assets, and lifestyle. And the other question I would ask too is, is that something that you would want to own? Would you want to own a $6 million car? I mean,
Me
I know
personally, yes.
Randy probably would. Yeah.
I'll take it. Yes. I'd find somewhere to put it. I don't think it would probably work out with where I'm at right now, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's I mean, myself, I don't know. It would be like 50-50 if I really wanted to own, I don't know. I'd rather own a car that I can drive and have fun with and not worry if it gets dinged up. But that's just me. I know there's plenty of people that would own a $6 million car and put it in, like the Ferris Bueller kind of museum, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So anybody familiar with that movie, that Ferrari in that movie, that's a perfect example, right? It's a trophy car. It's not, and they go out and drive it and trash it and tear it up, right? And that's kind of the whole point, is that's not what you do with those kinds of cars, for sure.
Exactly. But yeah, that's another question that I would ask, yourself, or I ask myself, would I want to own that car? I don't know. There's, other things to buy and other assets out there that might align with you a little bit better. But the point and the concept is obviously the same. How can somebody afford X? How can somebody afford to fly private all the time, or take a month off and go to Italy and vacation and still come back and all their bills are paid? Whatever you want to throw in there, it comes back to the business and the assets that create the lifestyle.
Yeah, business, assets, lifestyle. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly almost a saying that I use around the Wilson household a lot, right? We talk about that. We're always trying to figure out ways to build business. Just right before we even hit record today, you and I were collaborating on an idea of how can we add value to the marketplace that's going to solve a big enough problem that would obviously benefit the end user. That's you. When you start thinking like that, your dialogue, the communication that you have almost with everybody, at least if they're in the same mindset that you are, is going to be that in that way. And so that would be my suggestion even for this individual, this friend of mine. So if you're listening, just find people, whether it's on podcasts, whether it's in different communities, that are thinking and speaking in this way. There are opportunities everywhere. In the next episode, we're going to go into where are those opportunities? Because that may be the first question. So where are these opportunities? We're going to talk about that in the next episode. So stay tuned. But at the same time, they're everywhere. And if you know where to look and you're willing to do the work, change your mindset, think about business, assets, and lifestyle. And business is nothing more than adding value to the marketplace, keeping it super, super simple. Jim Rohn has always been a huge influence on my life. And so in the Treasury of Quotes, which is produced or created by Mr. Kyle Wilson, so thank you, Kyle, for sharing this with me. But in this Treasury of Quotes little book here are some quotes from the late, great Jim Rohn. And when I first started listening to some of these and hearing these for the first time, it really started to affect my own mindset. So let me share a couple of them with you here today. Greg, we might go back and forth with some ideas about the quote itself, but see if this doesn't resonate with you as far as just thinking a little bit differently, because that's the whole idea. You just need to shift the way you look at everything and understand that it is possible. It might require a different ability to work, right? You might need to think differently, but at the same time, it's definitely possible. Okay, so let's go with the first one. There's 4 quotes here. Don't know if we'll read all 4, depending on time, but yeah, let's start with the first one. The first one is, the philosophy of the rich versus the poor is this: the rich invest their money and spend what's left. The poor spend their money and invest what's left. Give me your thoughts, Greg, on that one first.
Yeah, it's true, right? I mean, that's, that aligns with, a lot of the way I think as well. But yeah, I mean, it's just a simple statement. Might be harsh for some people to hear, but yeah, I mean, you have to, invest first and then, kind of go from there. So that's something, I kind of grew up in the middle class mindset as well. And that's one thing that I really had to flip in my later years. And, it's just true. That's the only thing I can really say about it. It's a solid quote.
We have in our house a certain amount that we set aside, no matter what, that is strictly for an investment account. And we start there first. Yes, we have expenses. Yes, we have, living expenses and all those types of things that we have to max or have to meet up to every month, right? But it's the idea that I want to set off my capital, my working capital, that's going to be an investment piece, right? I do that first. I have that set aside. I have it pulled out directly out of my account into a separate account. And then that way I can make a decision what I want to do with that as an investment. That's what I've done personally. Now, so what's that has done is that has kept me from, so usually, this is how it used to be for me even, right? When I was really stuck in my middle class mindset, was I would spend up to what I was bringing in. And that's kind of the whole idea, is that your lifestyle would expand based on whether you got a raise or whether you got whatever, right? So instead of thinking investment first, you would always just, okay, I'm going to get more money, whether you get a raise, get a different job, whatever that is, right? So you would go buy a bigger house, you go buy a fancier car based on that new income that was coming in, and flipping that and understanding that, yes, you can have more income. So I get excited when I do get more income coming in, like from a business idea that we've got going on, or something that's going on with my wife and the company that she's working with, because I instantly take that extra and I stick it in my investment account instead of, now I can't say that we don't go in and, maybe we'll go to dinner, or maybe we'll go, but we don't go on elaborate vacations. We don't go buy new cars. We don't, we don't upgrade our lifestyle. I actually take that capital and I put it more into this investment account to be prepared for all these assets that I intend to buy or build. Anyways, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a good way to do it. It sounds like you're very disciplined in your budgeting and just the way you're thinking. I think the same way too. If you get another stream of income that comes in, you're like, great, what can I invest this in? Because, my wife and I are kind of the same way. We don't, we like to travel, but we don't go on extravagant vacations and all that kind of stuff. So for me anyway, kind of running the finances, when new money comes in or new stream comes in, it's definitely, I can't wait to turn this into an asset that is going to produce, monthly or quarterly income. So same kind of mindset.
Yeah. So you move it over into the asset column, and that you not only, you didn't lose that initial capital because it's in the asset, right? You can always sell it. You can always get it back. But it's like you said, it spits off even more capital, which then can, so then it just snowballs. It begins to snowball, which that's when it becomes super fun. At least that's been my experience. So that's why I want to encourage the listeners out there. Once again, it's just a mindset shift. I just want to encourage you with that today. So let's move on. I got the second quote, or another quote. I know I mentioned there was 4, but I want to read this one here for sure before we wrap this one up here today. It's, let me see. It says, I used to think things cost too much. Then my teacher straightened me out with saying, the problem isn't that it costs too much. The problem is that you can't afford it. And that's when I finally realized that the problem wasn't it. It wasn't the thing. The problem was me. Yeah. So I love that. Meaning it just goes along with what we're talking about here today, that it's a mindset shift. The problem isn't that it costs too much. The problem is that you can't afford it. When I heard Jim say that for the first time on one of his audio programs, it's like, wow, you talk about a slap in the face. I mean, but it's true. Once again, you think about it. There are individuals that have spent the time with this different mindset, focusing on businesses, focusing on adding value to their communities, right? To the world at large, that have the ability then to have these assets that can support a lifestyle that they desire. And so there again, hearing that even in my own mind, that it's not that I can't afford it, or it's not that it costs too much, it's that I can't afford it. I've got to get that straight. So it's, let me say that one more time. So it's not that it costs too much, it's that I can't afford it. And that it's me, it's my mindset. It's how I'm approaching and attacking life. It's thinking that working for someone at a job is going to get me to this ultimate lifestyle. Now, once again, I want to go back and say that there's nothing wrong with that, but you can't wish or want the other things if you can't flip the mindset. And that's kind of just what I want to make sure that people understands that moving forward here today. So any final thoughts with that, Greg? I think we've kind of beaten this one up pretty good. It's been a fun conversation. I don't want to leave anything undone as far as if you have any other thoughts with this. I just want to make sure everybody understands that it's that mindset piece. It's looking at everything a little bit differently is how what's going to bring this potential to have these assets that are going to bring this awesome dream lifestyle that most of us are looking for.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of wrapped it up pretty well there. But yeah, I would just kind of reiterate the business assets and lifestyle. And then regarding that last quote, yeah, you're right. Especially with inflation, a lot of people are, kind of blaming inflation. Well, I can't afford that anymore. Another question you can kind of reframe in your head is, well, how can I afford that? Or what do I need to do to have the ability to afford that? Because prices are going up. And if your income is not going up to match that, there's going to be that disconnect there. So you really have to ask that question to yourself. What do I need to do to be able to afford X, Y, and Z?
Love it. So getting in the mindset of thinking of adding value to communities first, adding value, trying to solve problems. Think about the biggest businesses. We've had discussions about like a person like Steve Jobs or somebody like that, right? That whether you like the man, don't like the man, that's not the point. He solved a huge problem in the marketplace with the Apple computer. Back in the day, I saw a picture on the internet the other day of when he first released the Macintosh computer, the first personal computer. Can you imagine being the first person? I mean, obviously we take that for granted today. I'm speaking into an Apple computer today. And I have an Apple iPhone. I mean, you just think of all the things that he created. And when I say he, I just mean his business. His initial idea of the business created all of this stuff, which allowed him then to amass this huge business that supported his assets, right? Bought all his assets. He probably had cars. I'm sure he had real estate. He had all of this stuff. But that's where it comes from first, was from this business. I definitely would just want to make sure people understand that going forward. So hopefully we've answered that question. If that's been something you've been thinking about, or so just even paying attention out in your own current environment today, or when you're out and about, right? When you see things or you hear things, right? You'll hear people will say that they spend XYZ on this, or they go on this vacation or this, that, and the other. And just really think about, do they have businesses? Do they have, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a single business. It could be multiple businesses. I have multiple businesses that are trying to generate the capital, right, by adding as much value as you possibly can in the marketplace. And that's part of it as well. So if that is something of interest of trying to even learn how to even think about that kind of thing, don't hesitate to reach out to Greg and I at info@richmind.co. Let's maybe put in the subject line assets. And let's talk about building assets, because that's where it will all happen for you as far as starting to dream and build out this lifestyle that you really have for yourself, for your family, for your legacy moving forward. And that's what we wish for you as well. So the next episode, we're going to talk about these opportunities, as I mentioned, and that might have even set off some things in your own mind when I even said that out loud. But opportunities are everywhere. And if you know where to look, once again, you'll never run out of potential, right? You have to test. You have to figure out which is going to be the best opportunity. And we'll talk about that as well on the next episode. So if you are interested in finding opportunities in the marketplace where you can start to add value, start to solve problems, and then obviously start to make some sales, build a business, collect some assets, build out this lifestyle, the next episode is going to be a lot of fun as well. So go out there, have a fantastic day, And Greg and I look forward to coming back again on the next episode again very soon. Until then, bye now.